Hey there. Good morning. It's morning here in the US. Um, so today I want to talk about one of my favorite topics, which of course is going to be neuroscience and attachment, and how this is connected to helping adolescents, honestly, kids and adults as well, um, manage their emotions. So, emotion regulation. And to me, if we're talking about emotion regulation in the mental health field, to me, it's important to talk about what are the roots of that. And if I'm going to try and figure out what the roots are, then I'm always going to look at it from a neuroscience and attachment framework. And so for emotion regulation, to me, it's really important to think about neuroscience. And because to me, the neuroscience helps provide the solution. And for me, the number one secret that I find really, 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 really helpful is thinking about it from a mind body connection. And if I'm thinking about it from a mind body connection, then I automatically want to think about ways that I can incorporate expressive arts if I'm working with adolescents and adults. So that's what I want to talk about today. If you're joining me, please go ahead and post your name in the comments. I'm using StreamYard, so you probably have to give StreamYard permission. And that all that means is I can see your name. But if you don't want to let me see your name, that's fine too. So if you're joining me live, go ahead and post your name in the comments. Let's see who's here. What population do you work with? Do you work with children, adolescents, adults? What kind of a setting are you in? Different settings may use the treatment process slightly differently. For example, outpatient counseling looks different than a residential treatment, and it looks a little different than intensive in-home, but the foundational principles can still be applied. So if you're joining me live, go ahead, post your name in the comments. Let's see who's here. If you're watching on the replay, hello, and go ahead and post your name in the comments. I'd still love to see your questions, where you're from, population that you work with. Do you use expressive arts? How do you use expressive arts? So let's go ahead and get started. So today, I want to talk about what I think is a really, really, really valuable way to help your adolescent clients uh, regulate their emotions more effectively. And to me, that is using the mind body lens in which to see what's going on with them, which means you're at least using neuroscience. To me, I think neuroscience and attachment go hand in hand when I'm working with clients. So when your clients are struggling, if you're working with children and adolescents, honestly, even adults, think about the role that their attachment relationships has had with their neurocircuitry as far as emotion regulation is concerned. One of my favorite researchers, I'm going to nerd out for a second here, is Alan Shore. I love the work that he did regarding the right brain and attachment. And Alan Shore called attachment theory, he kind of renamed it emotion regulation theory, so co regulation theory, which I love that because if you think about attachment and the role that it has in a child's developing neural circuitry for emotion regulation, it makes tons and tons and tons of sense. So, how do you work with adolescents to help them master their strong emotions, especially if they're not really verbal or they're not really, um, really honestly, if they don't want to be there? So, their willingness to be vulnerable and open and access insight is probably limited in the beginning until you begin to build some of that rapport at least. So how do you help them? And how can expressive arts help your clients, your adolescent clients, even adults and kids, regulate their emotions? And to me, that is where emotion regulation comes in. And I love using expressive arts when I am exploring the use of mind body interventions with my adolescent clients. So if you're joining, go ahead, post your name in the comments. Let's see who's here. If you're watching on the replay, post your name, population you work with. I'm Kathy Spooner. I'm a licensed clinical social worker here in the United States. I'm also a registered play therapist supervisor with almost 30 years experience in the mental health field, working with children, adolescents, and families. And for the last about 20 years, I've been using play therapy and expressive arts pretty exclusively. And to be honest, I've known about and used play therapy. Actually, I was a special ed teacher and the school psychologist used it. I just did what she told me with my class when we did a group. So I've known about play therapy and the effectiveness of play therapy since the 1980s when I was a special education teacher. It just took me a while to find somebody that knew how to do it. And I will tell you the difference between having someone as a supervisor, mentor, guide, show me and teach me how to use play therapy and expressive arts, the difference in the treatment that I provided and my confidence level, to be honest, was huge. So I'm a huge fan of trainings. I do a lot of trainings. I have an expressive arts course. One of the things that I talk about in the course is this mind-body connection and how to use expressive arts with that mind-body connection lens. So I go live every Wednesday at 7 a.m. here in Pacific time, which is 10 a.m. on the East Coast. Next week, though, I'm going to go live in the evening at 5:30 on Wednesday because on Saturday night into Sunday, we have our time change here in the United States. So we're going to spring forward an hour. So we lose an hour. So 7 a.m. will actually be 6 a.m. And that's just way too early for me. So next Wednesday, because of the time change here in the US, I am going to go live in the evening, still on Wednesday though. So I go live in my Facebook group. So some of you may be watching this in my Facebook group, which is Play and Expressive Arts Therapy Playground. If you're a mental health professional and you're on Facebook, feel free to go over there and join the group. Make sure you answer the questions so you can get in. I live stream into LinkedIn and my YouTube channel. So if you're not available for the live streamings, you can always watch the replays. And if you find the information helpful, please like and share it across your social media. Okay, so emotion regulation, neuroscience, and the mind-body connection. If we're talking about emotion regulation, I really think it's important to think about the neuroscience and attachment lens that is, I find, effective to use. And the reason it's effective is it really helps you understand how the mind is the boss of the body. What I mean by that is emotions get activated and our ability to regulate them has everything to do with the strength of our emotion regulation circuitry, which is really developed early in life with the co-regulation with our early caregivers. And so if we understand emotions and how they get accessed, that is a really that kind of lays the foundation for how I'm going to approach the interventions that I use, what's going on with my clients. So we know that emotion regulation shows up diagnostically with our clients, might be anxiety, might be depression. Our clients may come to us because they're super irritable, or they may be struggling with anger outbursts, might even be self-harm, maybe even trauma, and they get activated and go into that fight, flight, or freeze mode with their trauma. Emotion regulation circuitry is underlying all of those diagnoses. So if we look at emotion regulation from a neuroscience and attachment standpoint, underneath of those diagnoses, it helps us understand what's going on with the emotion. It also provides a solution for interventions. And so what we know is that emotions are accessed through and first initially processed through the limbic circuitry, and the information coming in through our body, through our senses, through our smell, through our what we hear. We know from the work of Stephen Porges that we have that neuroception circuitry working all of the time without our conscious awareness that's going to alert us to danger. And to me, anxiety is seeing danger where no danger exists. So we know that's true with trauma. But if you think about anxiety, it's that way too. My brain is telling me something bad is happening. So it's going to activate fight, flight, or freeze. And I'm going to worry excessively about things that may not even be accurate. My brain and my body are telling me, like panic symptoms, my body is telling me something is wrong, and my body is responding, and it feels like I don't have any control over it. So we know that that mind-body connection exists when we're talking about emotion regulations. So it also gives us the solution to help our clients develop some skills. For example, how do you experience emotions? What do you feel in your body? Where do you feel it? What does that feel like? And we also want to make sure that we get information and help them identify intensity. So anger, let's say anger is an emotion. There are variations of anger on a continuum. And if I identify, so let's say lower on the continuum of anger would be frustration, maybe irritability because I'm frustrated. Middle would be anger. And if we use a 1 to 5 scale, 5 would be I'm about to blow my top, which means I'm going to scream and yell. I might even rage. That would be really on the extreme end. So if you think about emotions and you can help your clients recognize where you feel those emotions in their body, how they feel them, also connecting with the intensity. So how does frustration feel in my body that's different than maybe when I get to a 3 or a 4 in intensity? That's going to feel different. And if I can recognize the way that that feels in my body, then I can catch it earlier. That's ultimately the goal, because catching it at a 1 or a 2, the skills that you need are going to be much more easily implemented by yourself than if you're at a 4 or a 5. If you're at a 4 or a 5, the likelihood you might need some adults to help your adolescent clients do that co-regulation with them, or a friend or somebody. The likelihood they're going to need some help at a 4 or a 5, or that may just look like they need to go spend time somewhere by themselves, because having another person around may just activate them more if that person is not really effectively co-regulating. So it's really important to help our clients connect and recognize what emotions they're feeling in their body, where they're feeling them in their body. What does it feel like at the intensity level of a 1 or a 2 versus a 4 or a 5 or a 3? Because at each of those intensity levels, they may want to use a different skill. So if any of you are familiar with DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, one of my favorite skills to use, I have a couple. One of my favorite skills to use is the Cope-Ahead plan. To me, this is perfect. And you can use expressive arts to help them develop some skills like using drawing or music or poetry or dance or exercise, which exercise is an expressive arts. But you can help them. The Cope-Ahead plan, when my emotion is at this level, I can use this skill. When my emotion is at this level, I may need to use this skill. And you want to help them identify probably a couple of different skills. So this is their plan. And in between, you're going to have them practicing that. So that's the importance of, to me, if we use a neuroscience and attachment lens to understand emotion regulation, that really helps us understand the importance of the mind-body connection. And to me, I think if we're talking about emotion regulation with our adolescent clients, then we really do need to think about that mind-body connection and help your clients understand that. And that's one of the things that I talk about in my expressive arts course, is going more in depth into that neuroscience and attachment and emotion regulation, and helping clients with their window of distress tolerance using different kinds of expressive arts activities to help with that, because I like using a neuroscience and attachment lens when I'm working with my clients, and especially if I'm using expressive arts. So we know that emotions are accessed through those sensory circuits. That's going to help our clients tap into and understand or tune into their bodies and what their bodies are saying to them. And we can use art so if you think about expressive arts, poetry, music, all of those engage the body and through the senses as well. So to me, expressive arts is a really good way to tap into that mind-body connection through those sensory circuits. So the act of drawing and that bilateral movement between the two hemispheres when we're drawing, and fully present in the moment, engaged in that drawing activity. Or those of you who use clay, that's another way to fully engage all of the senses, and being fully present in that moment. Because what we know is mindfulness is a really effective way to help calm down and regulate our emotions. We are fully present in the moment on purpose. We're tuned in and connected to ourselves. We're grounding ourselves in that moment. And we can do that through art. One of my favorite activities to use is that, it's a DBT skill, and then I kind of implemented expressive arts with it, which you can do so many different ways. So mindfulness of emotions is a DBT skill, which is essentially you're teaching it's kind of a mindfulness based skill, meaning you're teaching your client to tune into their bodies to figure out what emotion that they're having, because we know emotions give us really good information. And so one of the things that I like about DBT is that it really neutralizes, meaning emotions aren't good or bad. It's not all enough or nothing. Emotions are emotions. Anger isn't good or bad. Anger is an emotion. Fear isn't good or bad. Fear is an emotion. And if we tap in and recognize what emotions that we're having, then we can also figure out what it is our emotions are trying to help us understand. They serve a purpose, which I love that. What is the purpose of this emotion? For positive ones as well, if we feel happy or peace, that's giving us information in that moment that can be useful for us, to help us stay grounded and balanced in our lives. So we want to make sure we get some of that in our lives. So we can use mindfulness with expressive arts to help us, to help your clients get grounded, to help them be fully present in the moment. We know mindfulness will help to regulate that vagus system and help to settle down that neurocircuitry, and also help us to increase our windows of distress tolerance. So for your adolescents clients that have a narrow window of distress tolerance, it usually means they're going to be dysregulated a lot. And one of the things that you can do is use expressive arts to help widen that window of distress tolerance, teach them some skills they can use when they're distressed. And for adolescents, I mean, what most adolescents are totally into music. You can use different kinds of activities, with mindfulness and music. You can use, I like to even combine like art and music together. You can use mindfulness to teach some skills. You can use expressive arts to figure out what the cognitive distortions are that are activating that emotion dysregulation, and then what can they do to challenge that. You can have them use expressive arts to create positive, self-talk statements, and that's something that they can, sometimes visually we need to see those as well as say those. And creating them also integrates that cognitive restructuring more deeply, so to speak, for a lot of our clients. So there's a lot of different things that you can do using mindfulness and expressive arts. That doesn't necessarily mean our clients need to access those insight oriented parts of their brain to settle them down, because a lot of times they're not going to even be able to verbally engage and tell us what's going on until they can get it, feel safe, settled, and grounded. A lot of times, sometimes they may just need to say it in an angry way so that we know what's going on. And then they can use another skill to help them regulate their emotions. So that is it for today. Just as a recap, to me, if you, one of the things to me that can be really helpful in your work with your adolescent clients is looking at emotion regulation from a neuroscience and attachment lens, which means you're also going to be tapping into the way in which that mind-body connection works, because it provides an understanding of what's going on with your clients. And it also provides some solutions that you can, think about to use when you're considering what interventions you want to use. And so we know that emotions are accessed through that sensory information, that mind body connection, the information coming in through the body and then processed up. That's the bottom up processed in those higher regions of our brain. Hopefully they can access those frontal lobes, and figure out what's going on. And then that helps to, get more grounded. We can access the mindfulness to help do some of that grounding work, that emotion regulation work. and also use expressive arts to do some cognitive restructuring to understand what's activating those emotions in the first place. So that is it for today. If you're interested, I do have the Expressive Arts course. This is self-paced. You can take it anytime, anywhere. It will help you take a look at that attachment neurocircuitry to help get that mind-body lens, and then some expressive arts intervention. There's a lot of expressive arts activities that you can use right away. The course really uses a neuroscience and attachment lens throughout it because, to me, that is one of the benefits of using expressive arts is we can tap into that mind-body connection and help your adolescent clients really engage more deeply in the change process. You can help them identify shame-based beliefs, fear-based beliefs, beliefs about themselves, beliefs about others, beliefs about relationships within that attachment lens. I love the work of Peter Fonagy and his colleagues about mentalization, and how can we use different art activities to explore that. And then, because one of the things that I always find is comes up, I remember this was a big, when you're first getting started, especially having an understanding of what is going on in especially like the artwork that they're doing. So really talking about some of those developmental aspects of adolescence, because when you think about those are going to be what you need in order to help you help your client navigate through those adolescent tasks. And how does development influence art? Because you want to think about not only the chronological age of your client, you want to think about their social emotional age as well, and that may be different. And one of the things that I love about expressive arts is you can see that in the work that they produce. So if you're interested in that course, you can go to my website, which is rrhcounseling.com/courses. It's on there, so that you can see that. And I will see you next week. Bye for now.